Well, welcome everyone to Law Talk, brought to you by the Falvello Law Firm. Remember, you can get them at 570-788-4191 or go to their website, falvellolaw.com. Interesting things that we discuss. Today I'm joined by the owner of Falvello Law Firm, Alexis Falvello. It's nice to see you again.
You also?
I like you better than the other guy.
Sometimes,
I think that's
right?
your dad, right? Yeah. How's your dad doing?
He's doing well.
Yeah.
He keeps busy.
Is he working or is he just...
He is working, yes, almost daily, actually. But he also makes time for grandchildren and friends.
And how about I keep forgetting to ask, Connie, how are all the other lawyers in your family, your sisters?
So doing well. So yes, my aunt is retired. She's...
Who?
My Aunt Paula.
She retired?
She retired, yes. And then I have an Aunt Nina, who's also an attorney, and she's down in the DC area, and she's practicing, and she's doing well there, so.
And your brothers?
Yeah, my brother's doing really well. I actually ran into him yesterday at lunch. So he loves working at Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
And he loves, I think, being back in his hometown.
We're talking about Dr. Falvello now, the orthopedic surgeon.
Yes.
You know, it's when he was on the show, and not because, you guys are like family, but the point is, his demeanor is so nice, and that's all when Dr. Falvello did this, and he was concerned, and it's a true concern.
Yes, yeah. I do hear that a lot about people that have been his patients, but I also see the other side of it, where he's at home and leaving a family meal on a Saturday or a Sunday when he doesn't have to make sure that his patients are doing well.
Very
or doing okay.
dedicated.
Yes.
Lehigh Valley is lucky to have him back.
I think so too.
Speaking of doing things and being involved in the community, we have a person from Mountaintop. Watch, this is on Channel 92 up there over the weekends. And we're on, as you know, up in Mountaintop Saturdays and Sundays from 7 to 11 p.m. And Law Talk is played there. So this girl was... I guess she's a college student graduating or whatever.
Okay.
She wants to, consider law, but she's concerned, a female going into it, what's it like? And she admires you. You're like, she really likes you. And well, what advice do you have for not only her, but anyone who is considering going to law today? You hear there's so many lawyers out there today, there's too many lawyers and, the whole bit. What are your thoughts?
Well, and there are a lot of lawyers out there, and there are a lot of good lawyers out there. But I think if she's dedicated to her clients and doing better for clients that may come in, if she were to go to law school and become a lawyer, that's what motivates me. And it's not kind of like my brother, when I just mentioned, he's at home, his patients are kind of on his mind, and although he's at home, he still has work on his mind. And there are times that I could say the same thing about my profession and what I do, because the people that come are coming to you under circumstances that they would prefer not to have exist in their life. I mean, I carry that with me when I'm walking the dog or going about, doing yard work, or, I think about these clients because you want to help them out as much as you can. So if this is something that she would be interested in, I think you can do that as an attorney. And again, they're not always under the best of circumstances. And for instance, we do car accidents. I have clients that would much prefer not to have been in a car accident and not pursue financial recovery as a result of it.
Yes.
So you can't really ever make them whole, but you can do the best you can on their behalf.
Is it easier or tougher to be a female in the law?
I think it depends.
Did you encounter anything being a female?
I have at times, but it doesn't really. I like to think that I have a pretty thick skin and I just move on because that's not an issue with me. It's an issue with the person that I'm dealing with. There have been times that I've thought, I wonder if I were my father doing and saying the same things, would I have the same response? That sometimes crosses my mind, but I don't focus on that because it takes your eye off the ball, so to speak, which is you're trying to help your clients and you're trying to facilitate the best outcome. So sometimes I do have those thoughts, but it's not something that I
Yeah.
Focus on.
How was law school for you?
So law school was interesting. I made great friends. I was in Carlisle for undergrad, so I was in Carlisle then for law school. It's work. It's a lot of work. My nephew actually just graduated from University of Pittsburgh Law School, which was awesome to see him graduate. And he
Now,
has a
who's
job
this?
lined up. My brother's oldest son, Wilson. So he just turned, well, he actually turned, I think it was 25 the day after he graduated law school.
What brother?
It's Anthony. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's his stepson, but it's his son.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
And he's
yeah.
been part of our family.
My God, I can't believe that.
So I know. It goes so quick.
My goodness.
Yeah. So, and it is a lot of work. And sometimes all of it is a means to an end, right? You go to college, then you take the LSATs, then you have to graduate law school, and then you take the bar exam. So there are these hurdles that you have to kind of jump over in order to get to be a lawyer.
So I was talking to you about, she read this book, A True Story. And long and short of it, the girl, instead of having an abortion, she had the baby and she would put up for adoption.
Right.
And at the time for the adoption, she was down in the dumps, et cetera, et cetera. She needed help, and so this attorney who was handling the adoption and their assistant really were helpful with her, did everything they can, and she said, look, I'd like to have the baby, I'd like to be able to see the baby, or I'd like to have pictures of the baby, and so they made an agreement, and they were there every day for her. Till the adoption happened, and they dropped her like a hot potato.
The attorney did.
Yeah, and so in the book, the girl says evidently they were in it for the money. So this is what she's saying. Our you can't say all lawyers are that way, But she said, is it because of the money or is it because of a career? And she was troubled with that.
Right. Well, as an attorney, of course, you do want to make a living.
Yes.
But having said that, if she's concerned about that, right, the first thing that comes to mind for me is if she were to become an attorney and be in this profession, that she would make a great attorney because she cares, right?
Yeah.
And, sometimes we do see that with lawyers. It's about numbers and money, but if you have a true concern, I think that goes beyond what the money you receive, right? So for me, for example, I was in the DA's office from 2008 through 2015. And certainly that's not a position that you're in to receive money, right? And even though things are better now and their salary has increased since my time there, to me, doing child abuse cases or other cases where there are victims involved, I did car accident cases as well, like vehicular homicides, the best payment you could receive for me would be a guilty verdict. The jury, 4 persons standing up and saying, the jury, find the defendant guilty. And then saying to that 9-year-old child who was abused, you're validated, right? And he's going away for a period of time and he's not going to hurt any other children. And that's something that money can't give you.
That's
so,
right.
And that, I still hold on to those moments even into my private practice, because you still want to make a difference for the people that come through your doors in my office.
She also said to me, she said, Mr. Lasand, what makes a good lawyer? Okay. Now I knew your grandfather. We were like this, Tony. He was superb. He was one of the smartest lawyers that I've ever come across.
Yes.
But what, in your estimate, what makes a good lawyer? A good lawyer.
A good lawyer. I think it depends on who you ask, but in my opinion, I think a good lawyer is one who's dedicated to the best outcome that they can get for their client. And sometimes that's not always saying what the client wants to hear, right? If there's a soft spot in the case, or if there are certain things that you have concerns about, my approach is to be completely transparent with a client, because you don't want to set the expectation too high. But also you want to be an advocate for them because you are their voice. And I think, in trying to achieve the best result for your client, I think that's what makes an attorney a good attorney.
So here I told her, that she should be encouraged, but sometimes you look for role models, and you like to see how that person reacts or is involved. Being a lawyer today, it's a challenge, And how do you determine then, Alexi, as to what case you should take? Because there are some people yet who are not nice people. They look for suing, and they're looking for whatever they can. Like you said, some people who are in car accidents, they would prefer to have their health, and they still have to live, and
Right.
they deserve some, some support. Your thoughts on that?
Well, in evaluating cases and looking at whether or not we take a case, I know we had discussed this prior to me coming on here today, the type of insurance coverage is important for car crash cases, right?
Yes.
So if somebody carries limited tort, unfortunately the law then dictates that they're not able to pursue any damages other than economic loss. So that would be outstanding medical bills, out-of-pocket medical bills, wage loss if they were off work for a period of time, any loss of finances that they've incurred as a result of injuries sustained in the crash, right? So that's limited tort, and you can't pursue non-economic or pain and suffering damages.
So that's limited tort.
Yes.
So when you're getting car insurance, I know we discussed this before,
Yes.
and my friends, please check your car insurance policies. If it says limited tort,
Yes.
so sometimes, well, not sometimes, but there's always a savings, limited tort versus full tort. We'll talk about full tort, but it's sometimes not even worth that couple $100 that you may save.
I would say 100% of the time it is not worth the money that you save in getting limited tort, because if you're in a car accident and you have pain and suffering, which most people do if they're in a car accident, that's really where you get the insurance companies to pay up. And again, you're able to pursue those damages if you have full tort. So I would, and it's not, it's not a subject matter that people are sitting around their Sunday dinner
That's right,
tables saying, oh, well, I had limited tort, and what tort selection do you have? I mean, it's not something that people talk about. And oftentimes it doesn't become important until it's too late.
And let me tell you, so here what you're talking about is the things that you get involved with, and so there's a lot of challenges for this young girl. I told her to call you. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
But you talk about limited tort and full tort. When your dad Connie was on, I don't know what it was, but anyway, he talked about full tort.
Yes.
In detail. He talked about limited tort. He talked about what happened, okay? A lady who was watching the show, okay? And I encourage the people who are watching this show, get your car policy out and see what you have. Because sometimes, you go the cheapest route. But that being said, she saw the show. She went and she looked at limited, she had limited. She immediately told them that she wanted full tort.
Okay.
Sometime after that, within a week or two, or after she had full tort, she gets in a bad accident. And if she didn't have full tort, she said, it would have been a disaster for her.
Right. And that's true. I'm sure that's true for her. Because that's where these insurance companies, I think, would much prefer that you have limited tort, which is full,
Why would they
full
do that?
coverage. Because they don't have to pay out on claims if there's a significant claim. So, and again, limited tort is full coverage by law, but in the eyes of somebody who does trial work on behalf of injured car crash victims, to me, that isn't full coverage.
And here's another thing. A friend of mine, maybe about 2 years ago, was looking to hire people, lives in businesses out of Drums, and he said, I think he said 23 or 24 applicants came, okay? And the job requires a license. 15 of them did not have licenses.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if any one of those people did not have license or insurance, and they plow into somebody because they're either high or they're drunk or whatever the case may be, could you imagine if you did not have full tort?
Well, I mean, that's just
That's a nightmare.
Liability, right? Yes, and if Well, the other issue that you'd want to have is underinsurance and uninsurance coverage.
Now, here again, I'm going to take a break, but I want you to explain that, okay?
Okay.
I'm talking to Alexis Falvello, folks. Law Talk is brought to you by Falvello Law Firm. There's a lot of things that are on their website that you will learn. It's falvellolaw.com. And all of the shows that we've done with Law Talk are on our website. And you just go to samsonproductions.com, hit the shows, Sam Lassant Shows, Law Talk, and you'll see all the shows. A lot of valuable information for free. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Law Talk, my friends, brought to you by the Falvello Law Firm. Been around 100 years, right, Alexi?
Yes.
570-788-4191. And I said before the break, you can watch all of our Law Talk shows if you go to our website, ssptv.com. We're talking about, my friends, right now, tort insurances and what you should have on your policy, your car policy, okay? Please, my friends, look at your policies. Now that it's fresh, you're watching the show, look at your car policy. And if it doesn't say full tort, correct?
Yes.
Then you got a problem, okay? You want full tort. Now, based on full tort, we're talking about underinsurance
Yes.
and uninsurance.
Correct.
Okay, explain that to me.
So these are additional optional coverages that you can have as an insured party. And just to clarify too, when you're looking at your policy, you want to look at what's called the declarations of coverage page. So that's going to summarize the coverage that you selected when pursuing your car insurance coverage. And with the under and uninsurance coverage, again, that's an optional portion of car insurance that you can select. And the underinsurance coverage is applicable if you're injured by another party, they're at fault for causing the accident, and they don't have enough insurance coverage to pay for damages that you've incurred as a result of the crash. So then you pursue on your own policy what's called an underinsured claim, okay? And that will provide an additional layer of coverage in the event you're injured, particularly if you're catastrophically injured.
Make it simple because I'm very simple. If I go and look at my car insurance policy, right, and where do I see where it says limited or tort? Where would that be?
So that is tricky because it's not always.
Oh my God!
Right, and I think it's by design, quite frankly. I sometimes have to really page through the declarations of coverage page.
So it's on the declaration of coverage.
It should be, yes,
okay.
yeah, but it's not. Typically, it's not a uniform location amongst all different, policies. So you really have to look for it. Easiest thing to do would be to call your insurance
Exactly.
agent.
I was just going to say, just call your insurance agent and say, look, here's my policy. Pull
Right.
it out. Do I have full tort?
Right.
And do I have underinsurance and
Right?
uninsurance?
So
yeah.
uninsurance then applies, say you're hit by one of those 15 applicants that didn't have a license. Likely the carrier, the insurance carrier is going to deny coverage. And if you don't carry uninsured coverage, then you're completely, you cannot
That's to
pursue
protect
any
you if that
damages.
person doesn't have insurance.
Correct. Yes. And that's important to also
Oh my
have.
God, it is. I mean, especially around northeastern Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
you have people that are, like you said, they get a policy, etc. In terms of accidents, all right. Once again, your Falvello Law Firm has been, noted for, if you have an accident, give us a call.
Correct.
All right?
Yes.
Now, going back to the sometimes you're in an accident, right? And it's not a minor one, but it's an accident that you maybe got jarred or whatever. All right. At that particular point in time, if you have to be hospitalized, or you're not thinking about, oh, let me call Lexi up, I just in an accident, you're just bewildered, etc. Okay, what would be the steps that a person would take? Either they got hit in an accident or something happened. What would be the natural thing to take?
The progression of a claim. Well, I think it depends, right? Some people, I've seen minor accidents and people have that result in significant injuries. I've seen pretty horrific crashes that result in relatively minor injuries. But I think in the moments after a crash occurring, of course, you want to assess how you're doing in the vehicle. But what's important for me as an attorney, things that I look for from the client in the days, weeks, months leading after the accident, first and foremost, we look for photos of the damage. Oftentimes, what we do in our firm is we search various news sites that are local to where the crash occurred to see what, if any, photos or publications were made, interviews that may have been conducted. We pursue the police report, of course. But if the client themselves has any photos of the damage or the crash scene, that's helpful. The other thing is injuries that you may have sustained. That's incredibly helpful. So if you have bruising from the seatbelt, if you hit your nose on the steering wheel with the airbag, scarring, if you have any scarring or any open wounds as a result of the accident, those are important for us to have. But it's also important that you seek medical treatment, because that's how your injuries are verified. It's through the medical providers.
And normally what happens if you're in an accident, okay, and if someone hits you or whatever, your insurance agency, you notify them, and then if the other person's agency, the other person's insurance sometimes will call you.
Correct.
And they'll say, you were in this accident, what happened. Not your insurance company, but the other person's insurance company.
Yep.
What do I do?
Well, I would suggest that you contact an attorney. And then if you're contacted by...
Should I speak to that person?
You can say, look, I have a lawyer.
Okay.
Even if your intentions are seeking an attorney, you could just say to them, I'd prefer to speak to an attorney prior to speaking to you.
Yeah.
Because people's, I think when you're called, it's like natural to say, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I'm okay, right? Even if you're not.
That's exactly right.
So, and that's, so even something as insignificant as that, you're kind of being polite on the phone call, but that can be taken out of context, even though you're 5 minutes out from being in the emergency room, for a period of 8 hours while they run tests to make sure you're okay.
So the idea here is that you say, look, I prefer to speak to my attorney.
Right.
If your insurance company calls, then it's different. But I think that's the right way to be. Now, there's where the experience comes in, as what the Falvello law firm has. The experience from A to Z. And like you have here, your case is our fight. Well, that was lady at the mall, I think I told you that story.
Yeah.
She said, well, we have a fight on our hands. Well, their slogan is our case is our fight. And I'm sure she came and discussed what is necessary. But the idea is to be informed. Sometimes it's, like you said, it's not a common discussion tonight we're going to have. Let's talk about full tort and et cetera.
I don't think.
But it's very serious if something happens.
That's right. So, and you want to make sure you have the coverage that is going to protect you and your family.
So the best way I could tell you, my friends, is this. Don't trouble yourself and go through all these pages. Just call your agent, And I hope it's a local agent. I hope it's someone that you could talk to other than the 800 number, because sometimes you don't know what those 800 numbers are. They're just out. I'm not knocking, but I'm just saying it's just...
Well, I'm old school. I prefer to walk. That's what I do with my agent.
Yep.
I walk in, I have a conversation in person, and people can feel free to call us as well if they have questions about their coverage.
How do you determine, when you're a person's in an accident, how do you determine what monetary they should get? How do you determine these things?
That's a complex. There's a lot of layers to that,
is there?
right? Because you have to look at.
Should that be another show?
Well, that could be another show, but I'll wrap it up in a nutshell. Future medical bills, right? Past medical bills, future wage loss, past wage loss, pain and suffering if they have full tort, things like that. You want to have a look at, but in order to facilitate what those numbers might end up being on behalf of the client, you need to pull in various experts who are going to say, okay, this is the person's job traditionally was to do X, Y, and Z. Well, these injuries prevent them from doing Y and Z. So we pull in experts that can speak and author reports.
I'd like to
all of
discuss
that.
it at another show on that area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you look about, what you get, sometimes they see a verdict for $1 million or $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a friend of mine, which I never knew, maybe 5 or 6, 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He was hit on the turnpike, and he went 50 feet, okay, and I mean, he was lucky, he lived, but suffered greatly, and he's, now with a cane, and and that's 5, 7 years of agony that this
Right.
person went through. So no matter what kind of money he would have, like you said, he would much rather be, but the point is he still has to live and exist, and,
Right.
he wanted to raise a family or whatever. So these are the kind of things that you have to take
Yep.
into consideration.
Yeah, and not only the past 7 years, but what, we look at the person's age and what their life
It
expectancy
doesn't get easier.
is. So, right. And that's where the, additional medical treatment also may come in.
Wow.
So there's a lot of layers.
It's interesting, but these shows at least get people to think a little bit.
I hope so.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
it's for your benefit. Alexis Falvello, folks, 788-4191, 570-788-4191, FalvelloLaw.com. Just go to their website. Give her a call if you have any questions. But if you have your car insurance, call your agency and find out what you have. You want full tort. We'll see you next time.